So we're doing hormones today is what our class is about, but I want everybody to look at this just so that they can remind themselves of where they should be or where we're working towards. It's awesome. Everybody lost this past week. Yay! Woo! So that's really, really exciting. I'm just proud of everybody. And I know it takes effort. It takes focus, concentration. It takes effort. So good job. Everybody gets a candy bar. No, I'm kidding.
Such a tease like that.
Sorry. I should say free massage or something, right?
Yes. Non-food reward.
No. Right. Okay. Non-food reward. So just kind of take a look at where your goal is again, so you get that focused in your mind. And it's very important also for you to tell yourself where your goal is every day when you get up. And when we do EFT, we'll talk more about incorporating that in our internal language every day. So just take a look at where you are headed for, what you want to do, okay, where we're going here. All right, I think everybody got, this is just kind of an example sheet. When I passed these out, it was just so that if you didn't have your hormones done, like the hormone testing that we do, if you didn't have that saliva hormone testing done, I just kind of gave everybody an example of what it looks like. Laura, I know we did yours, but I don't think we pulled that up. Did we?
Yeah.
Oh, yay! Okay, thank you, Justin. All right. So when we're looking at this, as we go through the class today, you'll be able to refer back to this and see what, where this person had their shortages. And then, of course, everybody, I think, pretty much filled out your hormone report, except I think you didn't bring yours, right?
Oh, I turned mine in, yes.
And Justin, can you get one of these for us, an empty one, a blank one, so that Julie can fill that out, and real quick I'll go through that and we'll figure out where you're at. And what I did is on the top I wrote down what your issues are at the top. So as we go through the class, and you can look at either the handwritten tests that you did and see what you need to work on so that this will make sense for you, okay? Or if you've had your hormones done, saliva testing, then you can follow along as we talk about what are the consequences of the highs and lows. So when we think about hormones, what comes to your mind when we talk about hormones?
Moods.
Yeah? Good. What else? What else comes to your mind when we think and talk about hormones?
I think of menopause.
Menopause.
I think of women. I
Women.
forget that men have them.
You know what? And you're right. We do. We forget that our guys go through andropause. So they also go through a monthly cycle just like we do. And
They do?
They do.
Because Matt gets depressed once a month almost. Is that part of that?
That's part of that.
Oh my
Absolutely.
goodness.
Yes. and then they go through, like we go through menopause, or they call it perimenopause when we're going through it, and then
It's
menopause.
called midlife crisis for them.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Same thing is going on there. Their testosterone is going down, their DHE is going down, their estrogen's going up. So we're going to look at all of that today. So when we talk about hormones, what kind of hormones do you guys think of when we say, okay, hormones, what kind? Because there's a lot of different hormones. What hormones come to your mind?
I just knew about the estrogen and progesterone. Testosterone.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the three.
Okay.
Do others exist?
Yeah.
Pretty much, that's what we think of, right?
Yeah.
It's like estrogen,
Adrenals.
progesterone, testosterone. Laura?
Adrenals.
Yes.
That's a hormone?
Adrenals put out hormones.
Mine, so
Yeah. Yeah.
it must be.
Yes. So therefore, we're talking about DHEA. We're talking about cortisol levels. So and also even progesterone comes from the adrenals. So the adrenals are very important as far as outputting hormones. So what we're going to look at, we're going to start with looking at.
So did I hand my hormone paper in last week? I thought I did.
Let me see if I have it here. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay.
Yes, thanks. See
I
that-
thought I handed
yes,
it in.
that prefrontal cortex here is not working, so thank you.
I
Yes, just remind me.
gotcha.
Okay, so this is the cascade of how our body forms hormones. So did you know that it starts with cholesterol?
The cholesterol that's in our body already?
Yes.
Oh,
So we
okay.
have to have cholesterol in order for our body to make hormones. So isn't that nice to know that it's there for a purpose?
That's good.
And this is the cascade. So cholesterol will form pregnenolone, and pregnenolone is considered the mother of our hormones. From pregnenolone, you can see that now it will differentiate into different hormones, okay? So from pregnenolone, we have hydroxypregnenolone, which changes to DHEA, which changes to, and this is a hard one, aldosterondione. I practiced that over and over last night. And aldosterone can convert to either testosterone or it can convert to estrogen, then estriol, and estradiol. Now, estrone is a good estrogen. The bad estrogen is the estradiol. Okay, that's the one that causes cell proliferation and can cause the cancer, is the estradiol. Whereas the estrone and the estriol protect our bodies against the bad estrogen. So natural things like black cohosh increases the estrone and the estriol, and it blunts the estradiol, so it keeps that from producing.
So on this paper, it has those, but there's no reading for the two good ones.
That's correct. So if we want the lab to specifically check all three different ones, then we have to ask that, and then it costs more. So what they do is they just kind of clump them together and give us, the idea of, okay, what are all three of them together doing? Okay, so that's true. So when you look at your hormone test, you'll notice that they just clump them together and give us a total on the estrogens, unless we specifically ask them otherwise. Okay.
Yeah, I just have the estradiol.
Yeah. So that's the combination of them
Oh, it
together.
is.
Right. Okay. Combination of them together. Okay. All right. So looking at the left side of this graph, we see that we can go from DHEA to either testosterone or estrogens. Okay. And it's interesting because with us, what happens with women is if we have too much sugar or we have foods that are high on the glycemic scale, and we know that's going to be your cakes, your cookies, your white pasta, what actually happens is we will end up having more testosterone. Okay? So here's what happens is if we get too many of the sweets, which raises our blood sugar, produces insulin, then what that does, if our blood sugar goes too high, insulin goes too high, then it stimulates a hormone called sex hormone binding globulin, which will convert our estrogen to testosterone. So when we see women who have like polycystic ovarian syndrome, where they actually are not ovulating, and we just call it the ovaries are gunked up. It's to me, it's like it forms little cysts in the ovaries is what happens whenever we have foods that are too high on the glycemic scale. So then the ovaries will end up producing a lot of inflammation in there, and then they'll get little cysts in there, and then you don't really ovulate. You have a period, but you don't ovulate. So then it's very hard to get pregnant. That's why a lot of women are infertile, because their bad foods are too high. They're
And
too high on the glycemic
that's like more
index.
of a modern day thing, because they didn't really used to have as much problem with that
Yeah,
years ago.
Julie, you're right. I mean,
We have like 50 different companies producing one type of candy bar.
right. That's a good point. You're right.
All
I-
the refined food.
Yes, refined foods, right, uh-huh. That are, they're void of nutrition, and then they, they spike up that blood sugar, insulin. So for men, what happens whenever men eat too many of these foods, what happens to men is their blood sugar goes up, their insulin goes up, and then it stimulates that sex hormone binding globulin,
It like changes.
changes their testosterone to estrogen. So again, it's like, okay, they've got, too
Like
much
does the
information.
opposite for
Yeah, so it does the opposite for men, changes their testosterone to estrogen. For us, it changes our estrogen to testosterone. So then they become infertile. And I know, I'm thinking, Becky, now I'm, almost 60, so I know that whenever we were having kids and, getting pregnant, and you're not as old as me, so
I'm 50.
I'll put you in a, and you're younger, and you're even younger. But when you were having kids, did you hear of fertility clinics? Was that infertility clinics?
No.
Yeah. See, we never ever they just didn't exist. But nowadays, did you hear of infertility
There's
clinics?
so many.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So many
Yes.
people have problems
Yes.
getting pregnant.
So it's like the younger generations, they're growing up now thinking that these infertility clinics are just
Normal.
natural, normal, should be there, yeah. But it's our diet, so we can see how that's affecting our hormones. Pretty amazing. Okay, so then let's go back to the right side of this graph. The pregnenolone, which again is the mother hormone, and what happens whenever we age, our body stops producing pregnenolone. So pregnenolone is very safe to take, and we carry that, but it's very safe to take, and they say that it's one of the major anti-aging hormones that you can take. They say pregnenolone, melatonin, if you take those every day, that you'll live longer. So pregnenolone changes into progesterone, which changes into hydroxyprogesterone, then deoxycortisol, and then to cortisol. This is a little picture of the adrenal glands. I don't know if you can see that. I meant to do that in red so it would be more obvious. But so the adrenal glands sitting on top of the kidneys. So actually pregnenolone is very important for our adrenal glands too. So if we don't have enough pregnenolone in our system, then our bodies aren't going to make the adrenal hormones either. So over here on this right side, you'll see that as we cascade down, we make progesterone, and then deoxycorticosterone, corticosterone, and then aldosterone. And why is aldosterone important? Anybody ever heard of aldosterone? So this is an adrenal hormone, but aldosterone regulates the water in our body. So that tells our body, okay, we're going to hold on to this water weight, or are we going to let it go? Yeah. Okay.
So if it's not in balance, then it makes you hold on to water.
That's correct. That's right. And it also regulates
Kids
the...
just don't drink water.
Oh!
There you go.
Then your body will say, hey, I'm not getting enough water. Let's hold on
Really,
to it.
you can hold on to
Yeah,
what's there.
Right. Right. And this is interesting when we're looking at this side and this side of this graph. If we're under stress, our body will convert this pregnenolone into DHEA and estrogen if we're under stress, and bypass progesterone.
Oh.
So if we're under stress, our bodies won't make progesterone. It will make estrogen. And you can only guess what happens then is we become estrogen dominant. Not enough progesterone. And they say that when you're pregnant, if you're under a lot of stress, then that baby will be born adrenal deficient. So we can see what happens is it blunts that progesterone.
Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
Since
Yes.
Matt's not here, I can talk about it.
Okay.
He doesn't. His mom was like raped, kind of at a party, and that's how he came to be. And she doesn't even know for sure who the father was. So she was very stressed. She wasn't married back in the 60s and
Yes.
pregnant. And so, wow, she was really stressed. And so Matt has major problems with his adrenals, you know.
Yes, 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 and that's correct. Yes, and that's why he has that sleep pattern that he has. where he has a really hard time sleeping, and his cycle was totally off. But yeah, that's it exactly. So it's like sometimes we'll have kids. You know, I mean, I have 4 boys. You have six. You have 3 boys. You have 2 boys. Sometimes we'll notice that one of our kids is just a little different, and they can't tolerate things, or they're more sensitive, or those are the ones usually that when we were pregnant, we had stress with that pregnancy somewhere along the line. And so then it blunted that progesterone, which calms the baby down, you know, keeps us calm too. So, okay, let's look at what happens whenever we have high estrogen in our system or low estrogen in our system. What do you think of? If our estrogen's too low, what
I have
happens?
no idea.
Hot flashes.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay.
That's,
So,
oh,
oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I did it right.
Yeah.
I put that in the wrong place. Okay. Okay, so if our estrogen is too low, here's what happens. We may have a lot of pain. We'll get actually more pain because estrogen is a precursor to serotonin. So you have to have estrogen for your body to make serotonin, and serotonin takes care of pain. That is like the anti-pain hormone, okay? So we can have pain, we can have fuzzy thinking, we can have trouble focusing, we can have depression, bad moods if our estrogen's low. Bone loss, of course, I think we all know that one. Estrogen goes low, we start getting osteoporosis. And then also, it causes low serotonin. Low estrogen can also cause PMS. And then also the hot flashes, okay? Now, if the estrogen's too high, what do you think of? If estrogen's too high, anything in particular come to your mind? Anybody you know have breast cancer?
oh. Is that from the estrogen?
High
too?
estrogen, right,
My
right.
mom did, and they said that was from her hormone replacement therapy. Gave her breast cancer.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yeah.
Yes, because the hormone replacement therapy back then was Premarin. So they used Premarin, which was horse pee, which was estrogens from horses. So they were given, and it was the large molecule estrogen, it was the bad one. Okay. So, yeah, isn't that interesting? Yeah, see? Okay, so this is what will happen if our estrogen is high. We'll have weight gain, water retention. We become very bossy.
Oh.
Which is why, like, you know, when you're going through your cycle, and it's like around, it's like before day 14, the estrogen spikes, okay? So it's like right before we ovulate, the estrogen spikes, and we usually get a little more aggressive at that time, a little more assertive.
I'm that way all the time.
Yes.
Oh dear. I'm an estrogen high all the time.
We might need to do a hormone test on you. So then we also can have depression and aggressive behavior. Okay? So it's kind of interesting. The other thing that's very interesting is that when that 14-day cycle, the estrogen, it comes up and then it goes down the closer we get to our period, but then progesterone goes up. And the progesterone goes up because you have to have a lot of progesterone in the uterus to carry the baby. So when that progesterone goes up, then that's when we become a little calmer. But then both estrogen and progesterone crash right before we start our period. And then that's when we get the, you know, get away from me. the weepy crying, because both of those hormones will drop right before we start our period. I never used to do that either. I never had that issue until after my 4th baby. And yeah, then it's like, oh, so this is what PMS is.
This is what everybody's talking
So progesterone, let's talk about that. What happens when progesterone is too high or too low? Well, if the progesterone is too low, then the estrogen will dominate. So interesting, whenever you look at these hormone tests, sometimes you can look at these hormone tests and what will happen is the estrogen will actually show, so the example I gave you, if you look at that, you see what the estrogen is, the estradiol is? Anybody see that, what that is on the example I gave
Mhm.
you? So it's like less than 1.00, see that?
Uh-huh.
Okay,